planet of ours. I hope that you can all hear and see me. If you could give some indication of that in the chat. Okay, Timothy says hi, awesome. Hello, can you hear me talking? Can you see me? Can you see our lovely guests today? I guess you can. Yeah, we can see and hear. Awesome, amazing. Thanks, Simon. So again, let me do a quick round of introductions. My name is Rafał Kroll. I'm head of AWS Technologies at Trek2Summit, an AWS partner, an AMD partner. And today, on this great occasion, we have with myself, we have Florian Hedenbach of AWS, who's a senior business development manager, right, Florian?
Yes.
And subject matter expert on anything related to well-architected framework, AWS Well-Architected Framework, and Paweł Walczysko of AMD, who is customer sales manager.
Cloud sales manager.
Cloud sales manager, knows everything about AMD chips, and this is a great occasion because just recently, just a few days, like the stars aligned. We had a new EPYC 5th generation processors launching, so we'll be talking about that. Obviously, the main topic of the conversation is the AWS Well-Architected Framework. So if you're on AWS, if you're thinking about migrating to AWS, or if you generally want to know what are the best practices and some patterns for how to have a reliable, safe, and cost-optimized workload, this is the place to be. So without further ado, I'll give it to Florian. The floor is yours. You will kick us off with.
Awesome. Yeah, just double checking that you can see my screen. Is that shared?
Yes.
That looks good. Maybe just using one slide before. Did the animation come through? Yes, I think so. Yeah, cool. So welcome also from my side. My name is Florian. I'm based out of Germany. As Rafał mentioned, I'm with AWS. I was originally a technical trainer, worked in professional services, and since the beginning of the year, I'm part of what you see now on the slide, what we internally at AWS also call the Cloud Optimization Success Team. Very big name, but mainly you can connect me with Well-Architected, with the framework that we are going to dive deep today with Rafał on the different pillars we have in there, plus also what we call cloud adoption. So Rafał also mentioned if you're thinking about moving to AWS, or I will also show you, and you will also learn that you can even use this for on-premises environment. To tell a little bit about what we're doing in that field regarding the well-architected framework and the review. Those are two parts in general that we want to dive deeper upon. So let me just move on to the next slide. Let's see, that should work. So I told you I've been in a couple of projects also with customers, with partners in different areas, mainly the automotive industry. But a question that a lot of people are asking, and this is kind of the leadway to this first question, are you well architected? That's where we say we have built a framework guidance for you that can help you do the best job when architecting cloud infrastructure, cloud solutions. One question that I want to add as an addition is that people ask me when I was a trainer most of the time. They showed me how they built the solution. I have here my Lego blocks with AWS, our building blocks that you can stitch together. They often ask me, hey, Florian, did we build this right? Is there maybe a better way? What is your opinion towards our architecture? And essentially, the well-architected framework is covering that question. It's already now 10 years in the making, which adds a lot of knowledge, guidance from our solution architects working with customers and partners to be combined in one framework that you can leverage. When we look at the reason, why is it the case? Why should you well architect in that case? Is it in a shortcut? You see kind of the different the different articles here on that slide. It's mainly making sure that you as a customer are not the next headline in the news, kind of regarding security breaches, regarding either maybe a website or a shop being offline because of too many customers wanting to buy something. And in generally making sure that you align to the best practices that we put out, that we recommend. But one word of caution, although that we say, hey, this might be best practices, those might be things that you should do, always take this with a grain of salt. We say, hey, this is something we recommend you to do. We are actually not forcing you to do that. We say it's your choice to either put a focus more on, like, with AMD, with processors being very energy efficient, maybe more on the sustainability area, making sure that you run your stuff in a, let's call it a green way, or in general, making sure the focus is most of the time when people look at this the first time on security, to make sure that they don't expose any data unexpectedly, or make sure that they use encryption in a certain way. Okay? But it's, again, you will see this over and over in Rafal's talk also today about those questions that are answered or that are asked in combination with best practices plus design principles. So not being in the news in a negative way is one point. The other point is also when we look at why you should generally use the well-architected framework. And by the way, this is free of charge. You can have the documentation on the framework through our website. You can look at the different pillars. You can look at the different questions and essentially also do well-architected framework reviews by yourself. Of course, we have now Trek2Summit as a partner who is capable of doing this and also remediating certain issues. But in our case, while we're doing this, first of all, build and deploy faster. If you have, with AWS, we have so many innovations, so many things going on all the time that there might be a better way to achieve a certain goal and even increase the quality as you're deploying your solutions on AWS or updating them. In general, also lowering and mitigating risks. When I joined the team at the beginning of the year, this was my first learning where I realized that although that the stuff that we cover in well-architected seems to be quite technical in a sense, but there are also a lot of questions that help you identify certain business risks that are connected to the technology that you're using. Technology, we don't use this for its own sake. We want to achieve something, we want to drive business, we want to increase our customer satisfaction, or whatever reason that comes up in your place. We want to make sure that those risks get to the surface and can be discussed. By doing that, making the informed decisions is another point of why you should use the well-architected framework to say, okay, it's not only us from a customer perspective having that feeling that something should be different or better. It has this clear decision points where we recommend you to either use an AWS service to fix a certain issue, or in a general sense also, you can always see when we recommend a service, for example, Security Hub, you can also use a partner product or a product that does the same thing. So it's very general that we give guidance to you, but being very specific on the outcome that we want to achieve by giving you that guidance. And of course, in a general way, from education and enablement perspective, we want to help you learn best practices, being up to date with them. Our team also invests a lot of time and resources into updating this at least yearly to make sure that we consider the newly launched AWS services, new guidance, and we even have additional what we call lenses on top of the well-architected framework that you could use if you say, for example, you have a SAP installation you want to review in a well-architected way that you can leverage. Now, to give you an overview on what is the well-architected framework, I talked about best practices. Rafal will go into details, but in general, what you should remember is we want you to focus on best practices, but with this, we defined pillars and certain lenses. We have always per pillar certain design principles where we say this is the general direction you should go to, plus the questions that at the end becomes the questionnaire that you can go through for your workload within your team, within your company, to then find the specific answers. Plus, and this is where here with the general learn, measure, and improve, we also provide a tool that you can leverage to run through those questions. It's not rocket science, but it helps you getting to this point where I told you earlier about identifying certain risks, knowing what are the things that you should be working on with a high priority, and get this back to your team, say, hey folks, we identified this with AWS, with the framework, or with Trek2Summit, that we should do maybe fix essentially this security issue next. That's an important challenge. Now, I want to jump to the other section where I talked about on the one hand side, the framework itself being there as a guidance, being very detailed. So if you want to really dive deep into what is this about, where this is coming from, leverage the well-architected framework documentation to dive deeper into the backgrounds. If you say, hey, I want to be very practical, hands-on, I want to do something, we define also the well-architected framework review, like waiver. You see here, sounds like waiver. And in general, the well-architected framework review takes the framework, puts it into the context of review to then identify those areas of improvement, ensure the alignment for best practices, and enhancing security plus compliance. In general, also, it can help you increase cost savings. Now, I often get the question when it comes to overall cost optimization in the context of cloud success. People ask me, well, why does AWS want me to save money? We're not an NGO, we want to make money, we want to provide value to our customers. In our thinking from AWS, we have this long-term perspective where we think saving money or reducing even costs, when we, from the platform perspective, can do that. Sorry, from the service provider perspective, can do that. We want to make sure that you are aware of cost-saving opportunities. And I can tell you, in my experience as professional service consultant, there were a lot of times when we went to certain tools in AWS and they recommend, hey, if you change this and that, you can save X amount of dollars per month. So we see this as a long-term value of the cloud. The interesting part now with the review is that it gets you to this high-risk issues and medium-risk issues and even low-risk issues to, again, identify a certain action plan for you that you can then follow. A tip that I want to give you to come up a little bit also about the questions that in this review will come up. It's not, to be honest, not a very lightweight process. You need to take time, you need to invest for that, but as more as you do it, the easier it becomes. And again, remediating certain issues that are found, plus those risks, can be a hard time. There we have Trek2Summit as a partner for you to help you cover that. So you see a couple of questions there. Again, it's kind of making sure that we have the right thing built in the right way in the cloud, providing the best or the right value. And that is just a tip that I want to share with you for if you say, hey, that sounds interesting, we want to run that. A couple of personas that we typically identify that we either need to be either ourselves or take into consideration when doing a well-architected framework review. And on the one hand side, we have CTOs, the technical leaders that look at scalability and resilience. We have security leaders. I told you all about the security things we cover in the well-architected framework. We have general, the CEO is looking at, hey, maybe they look at the AWS and the technical solution as something technical, something that they need to invest, but they don't see a lot of value. Well-architected can help you also uncover the value behind what you deploy in the cloud. And last but not least, CFO leaders and finance leaders, where I learned that oftentimes they're not bad people. They just want to know where the money is spent and what the money is giving them back in terms of value. So to summarize what the well-architected framework plus the review will give you is an actionable plan to uncover certain risks that come from maybe, let's say, a not ideal implementation of your technical environment. But it's bridging, that's for me always interesting, the business side plus the technical side in a tool that we will give you for free. All right. So yeah, with that, Rafael, if you can take over, that was my part. Hope that all makes sense. If there are any questions, I will be also here for the rest of the webinar plus in the chat. Thanks, folks.
Thank you very much, Florian, for kicking us off. If you could stop sharing your screen, then I'll start sharing mine, and we shall continue. Okay. Can you confirm that you can see my screen? AWS Well-Architected Framework of EPYC proportions.
Yes.
The presentation. Awesome. EPYC proportions, you see the spelling, you see what I did here, obviously alluding to our partner AMD. We'll talk about that in a bit. So again, AWS Well-Architected, who we are, you already know. Beautiful picture of the Zion National Park. I was thinking how to preface the whole presentation. Usually people go with the Leaning Tower of Pisa, something else. I wanted to do the opposite, something that is naturally beautiful. Okay, about this webinar, we already touched on that, what we're gonna go through. This section, I will talk more about the 6 pillars. I will show some simple code snippets with examples, and we'll talk, and they're, they are simple on purpose. For one, to fit on the screen and within the confines of this presentation. For two, to show you that. The second, even more important reason is to show you that sometimes it is very, very easy to adhere to these best practices. Okay, so we already know from Florian what the well-architected framework is. We have the 6 pillars, used to be 4, then they added the 5th. Now we have the whole 6 of them. And there are certain design principles for each of the pillars. We'll go through these quickly. There are obviously best practices and high-risk issues to avoid. And the origin, and I think this cannot be understated, this is distilled from thousands of AWS customer architectures and lessons learned. And I think we should always learn from our lessons. It's even better to learn, from, it's not from our lessons, from our mistakes, but it's even better to learn from somebody else's mistakes. So why all of this matters? You can see, if we optimize cost, we increase the business value. We enhance the security, we increase the business value. We improve the reliability, we again increase the business value. We maximize the performance, we also increase the business value. So we reduce incidents through proactive design, we cut costs with right sizing and optimization, we accelerate deployment with infrastructure as code, and we meet compliance requirements systematically. This is very important, and again, it translates to your business success. Before we're going to dive deep, here are 6 of them. This graph doesn't give them justice because they are not standalone pillars. They are very much well connected. You will see later on that, for instance, following all of the guidance from the cost optimization pillar and also performance efficiency pillar will get you there, like 3/4 of the way for the sustainability one. And usually you can't have one without the other. However, it is very important that when we talk to our customers, when we do this, it's not that you have to do all of them at once, because that would be a massive endeavor. We always focus on what is important for the given customer in a given situation, because sometimes security, obviously number one, but sometimes you want to, you are willing to take certain compromises, maybe with cost optimization, because you want to get your product quick to market, but you want to have the performance so you can support all of the customers coming in. So it very much depends, and you should also be aware of that the framework is flexible. Florian touched upon the lenses, so there are well-architected framework lenses are again focused around a certain area, certain vertical that can better target a given customer need. Okay, pillar number 1, we're gonna do them in order. So if you go to AWS documents, that's already gonna see them in. And operational excellence. So this is about running and monitoring systems to deliver business value. And I can't say enough how much this one I think is underrated. Whenever most of the customers, they always focus. They want to. The starting point would be either security or cost optimization. This one is my favorite one, and it's because it just makes the life of the engineers much easier, which is very close to my heart. Okay, we're gonna kick it off with a quote. Atul Gawande, surgeon, author of the Check This Manifesto, talking about how much we have to make sure we have in our hand to think about it to support complexity in our systems. And there is 1,000 ways things could go wrong. And the lesson coming from this is, when systems become too complex for human memory alone, we need a systematic approach. And in aviation, and this is a parallel I'm using here, because not sure if you know, but once upon a time I used to be a flight attendant. So in aviation, that would be checklists, and in cloud operations, that would be also something that's very dear to my heart, infrastructure as code. And again, drawing on that parallel, when you look at aviation, you have a pilot briefing that's happening before a flight. You have pre-flight checklists, so we always know, what things you're going to do in what order. The procedures are standardized, so no matter where you fly, it's going to be the same. You're going to know what to do. Nothing will surprise you. There are onboard instruments, air traffic control, flight recorders, and other sources of information for what's going on and when. And obviously there is a debriefing after each flight, and there is continuous learning from failures, which unfortunately means that in this particular industry, whatever, you board the plane, you see, those floor markings, you see something else, they tell you to fold the tables. 9 times out of 10, there was an accident in the past. People, were killed, and because of that accident, we learn from it that we now need to implement this or that. And of course, we don't think about such repercussions when we think about cloud. But some of you are running mission critical systems, hospitals. So the impact for hospitals, for instance, so the impact could be very much similar. So in cloud operations, we have infrastructure as code, automated CI/CD pipelines. We have runbooks for maybe something that we couldn't put into code yet, or we don't want to put it. So steps to take and in which order. Obviously, we have CloudWatch, so the service of choice in AWS for logs and metrics. And we're doing, or we should be doing, retrospectives and also post-mortems. The parallel, don't rely on memory, codify your best practices. So the problem that we are often, or our customers are often faced with, is the so-called click operations, which means somebody came in and spun up an EC2 instance, spun up a VPC, spun up all of the infrastructure just by clicking through the AWS console. And this is obviously very much error prone. It's an anti-pattern. And why is that? There is no version control. There is no audit trail, although I put an asterisk there because obviously we have CloudTrail on board, which by default will monitor every API call in your account. So that can help you out, but still we can do better. Configuration drift is inevitable, especially if you have more than one person dealing with the system, and it's very much difficult to replicate across environments. And again, imagine just doing one thing, clicking from the GUI in one account and then trying to replicate to 100 others. And we have customers who have hundreds of AWS accounts, so obviously hard to scale there. Manual security group updates, so that's just asking yourself for trouble. Detail monitoring often overlooked, and something I think is a burden for a lot of businesses. The tribal knowledge is required, so you have to know the history of the whole infrastructure coming in to be able to do something with it, and this takes time. Okay, so again, we have our operational excellence pillar to address this, and its core principles talk about performing operations as code, so infrastructure as code. We're going to see that in a minute, about doing automation scripts, making frequent small reversible changes, so you reduce your blast radius, because if you, instead of what we used to do, big bang deployments, let's say once every quarter or every half a year, you deploy as frequently as possible. The changes are smaller, so even if something goes wrong, you know what to roll back, and it's just easier and just makes sense. You refine operations procedures frequently. Anticipate failure, because this is also something that we should always have in mind. There is another pillar that talks about this even more, but we should do what is called pre-mortem. So we assume disaster had happened, and we work backwards to figure out how we could have deterred it, and we obviously learn from operational events. High-risk issues. So when you're doing the well-architected framework reviews, the review after it's done, there's going to be a report, and there are going to be those high-risk issues, HRIs. And within this framework, what you have to avoid is obviously manual infrastructure changes, lack of deployment automation, not having any run books, not doing any observability and logging, because sometimes things go wrong and you don't even know. And when your customers are calling you to tell you that something is wrong, then it's way too late. Okay, so we have our solution here. So very simple example. I'm using Terraform, but obviously there are other tools, CloudFormation. So AWS is native. You can use Pulumi. There are others as well, but this is a great starting point. I think if you're not using it right now, you should start, even if you think it's impossible because maybe you have so many resources spun up. Start small. It's like mapping out everything that you have and doing a proper audit in the way that knowing what's running and what purpose does it serve. So here we're creating an AWS instance. Let's call it web. We're using an Amazon machine image. So we will use Amazon Linux 2023. So the latest Linux distro by Amazon. We're setting security groups and we're setting, you can look here, the detailed CloudWatch detail monitoring to true, something that is very easy to forget about when you do it manually, because you have to go to a separate sections called advanced settings. Obviously, T3A, millions of shout out to AMD, and tagging. You can do it better, so you can actually do it outside of resources. You can define the tags in one place and have all of the resources tagged. And this is something that nobody ever does when they do things manually, because nobody ever cares. And tags are just such a powerful concept, great for cost allocation, great for role-based access, and a bunch of other stuff. What are the measurable outcomes when you apply all of the operational excellence principles? Deployment time can go from hours to minutes. So in order of magnitude faster. And I could argue it could even go to seconds or microseconds, depends on what you are deploying, because all of it is automated. Nobody has to remember what has to be clicked and when. So obviously machines are just quicker than humans. Configuration errors. When you do it manually, it's always going to be code late, and like I alluded to, sometimes it's going to be your customers telling you that something is not wrong, working correctly. When you have it in code, when you have your CI/CD pipelines automated, it's gonna those errors gonna get caught early, because you can have a bunch of checks, automatic checks, so nobody needs to waste times on them, and you'll be so much better off. Environment consistency. If you have more, obviously every system should at least have development environment and production environment. There are different customers who will do separate QA, separate staging. Depending on the vertical you're in, you can sometimes you will have like an integration environment. We see that a lot from customers from the financial sector. When done manually, very hard, almost I would say impossible. So the best you could do, I would argue, is a partial match, and only if you're just using a few resources in the cloud. And when you do it automatically, I would argue you can even go, you can be as close as possible to 99.9, and there will be parity between your environments, which obviously helps with deploying to production, because whatever you tested in dev, the same stuff will go to production. Obviously, you will do like different sizes, but of the infrastructure, so like bigger instances in production versus dev, but that will be just so much easier to accomplish. Audit compliance, so everything is traceable and pretty much automated for you. And if you don't have it in place, then you have to do a manual effort and come up with whatever the auditor asks you to. And mean time to recovery from hours. And again, I would say I was very generous here, because depending on the state of your current architectures, this could be even days here, and back to minutes, because again, you have all of that in code, and it will be just so much easier to spin it up again if you need to. And there is business value, because a lot of a lot of this presentation will be talking about business value that this framework brings. It's not just to fulfill best practices so you can say you fulfill them. Again, learn from past experiences of others and just deliver the business value to your customers. So faster time to market for new features, reduce operational overhead, improve team productivity, happier customers. Because if you have issues in productions, if your customers have to get out of their way to tell you what's wrong with your product, then obviously customers telling you that something's wrong is not that bad. The customers not telling you about something wrong, that's the worst thing, because usually that's a lost customer right there, and you have a better compliance posture. Again, I can understate my favorite pillar, very important, often overlooked, but if you get this one right, then the sky is the limit. Because again, I've seen so many companies struggling with evolving of what they built, because they did it using legacy way, or whatever they built become irrelevant, and it's very hard to catch up once you're in that situation. Next one, and like I said, one of the sexier ones, security. A very important topic, obviously, and also a topic that customers come to us and ask, because sometimes they have something that they think is working properly, that they think is secure, but they want to know for sure. Sometimes it's compliance reasons, sometimes it's just they want to think ahead. So this one is about protecting information systems and assets. And what this pillar will tell you to do, obviously, zero trust architecture. So you don't trust anybody, and you give the least privileges possible whenever you can, and use something that's called defense in depth, and that's multiple layers of security controls. So this flow illustrates that a bit. So if you have a cloud user trying to go into your AWS account, they will authenticate with the IAM service in the background. CloudTrail will audit all of the API calls. Once they're in, they can authorize them, and they can do changes to your web application firewall. So the point of ingress for your customers, there will be a traffic filter. So in network ACL, then you will so access control list. Then you will have the guard duty, threat protection working in the background, checking whether all of those calls are legit. Then again, a host filter. So on the network card, you will have a security group, and then you have access control to your database. You also keep your credentials elsewhere. So you can see, because we have those layers, it's really hard to compromise the whole system, because there is more than one wall to go through for things to go wrong. Okay, so what's the problem here? What we're seeing that often happens is the wide open security. Often security is something that you try to slap on your product as an afterthought. So this is an example of a security group. So basically a firewall for your network card on an EC2 instance, and this one allows SSH from anywhere in the world. This is one of the more common ones, because usually it's just easier for the developer to do it that way. Also, when testing, is often when you test your application, you allow everybody from the whole internet to access it. Obviously, not great, because your attack surface is now the entire internet. And then the egress, so the data coming out of your instance, you could also add certain restrictions there. Here are the core principles. So again, strong identity foundation. IAM is the service of choice is the main service in AWS. You obviously always want to follow the least privileged approach. So we only give the privileges that are to people and services as well, that are only necessary for them to execute a specific action. Use multi-factor authentication. Traceability, security at all layers. So what I showed on the previous slide. You automate security best practices. So this again goes hand in hand with the previous one. If you have your infrastructure in code, if you have your continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines in place, it is very easy to plug in static checks, to plug in dynamic checks for security. So you can have compliance checks. You can have the open policy agent running. So a lot of stuff can be caught during after a developer commits to your repository. So very easy to achieve. Once you have one, then it's easier to plug this one in. You protect data in transit and address. Very easy in the AWS cloud for most of the services, as easy as just toggling a button, and all of your data is encrypted everywhere. And you keep, in this day and age where data is king, you keep people away from data. Think about GDPR, PII, and all of those things. And you prepare for security events. So if, or rather when something happens, you have an incident response plan in place. And these are the high risk issues to avoid. So again, over security groups, root account usage in production, hard-coded credentials, and no encryption and address, and also missing cloud trail logging. This is a service that will help you out once something that you didn't want, that you didn't thought could happened, and you want to go back and check the origin of that. And here we have the solution, so our layer security. So this is obviously an example. We have our security group here, and what we're doing right now, we're using actually separate resources. This is a recommendation from the Terraform, so from the tool provider, to keep those rules separate. So what we're doing here, we're only allowing access to the instance from the network load balancer, so the load balancer that your customers interact in, where the data comes in, and obviously we're using 443, so that's HTTPS, so it's already coming in encrypted. And in our example here, we're utilizing S3 VPC endpoint to get the updates that our server needs from within the AWS network. So we're not traversing the internet. We don't need to give public access to the instance. And here, for not using SSH, there is a service called SSM, so Systems Manager on AWS, and there is a functionality of a service that is called Instance Manager. Very easy to set up, and you have an SSH-like experience, or even actual SSH over HTTPS. So you don't need to expose the port 2022. You actually don't need to expose any ports, and this is much better and much safer. And here again, this will be the common pattern for the whole presentation. So we have some measurable outcomes. So with the security group rules, before they were wide, after they're granular. Better granularity means you can look at different rules separately and ask yourself whether this particular service needs that particular access. SSH ports, again, wider attack surface if you have them open. Without, it's narrower. It's like one thing less to to worry about. So obviously much better. Limited attack surface compliance. Without adhering to what this pillar proposes, it is much harder. And we all want to have non-taxing and non-stressing audits. So save your future self some time and some stress by following this. And again, like I showed before, it doesn't need to be terribly hard to implement. Business value, reduce the risk of breaches. And I put it again lightly associated, because sometimes this will be the end for a business, depending on what business you're doing, what data you have. There could be fines from European Union, from other governments. So it's nobody understands how important it is until something has happened, and that's often way too late. Also, if you're operating in a specific industry like finance, and you need to get external certification like PCI DSS for processing credit card payments. So this will just get you faster to compliance, which obviously means you can get your product to market quicker. And customer trust and brand protection. Nobody wants to be affiliated with a company that doesn't have a good reputation. Okay, I think I will speed up a bit because I know Pavel was waiting there, so I'll try to do the other in the remaining 10 minutes. Pillar number 3, reliability. So we ensure workloads perform their intended function correctly and consistently. This is one of my favorite quotes. You probably know it. Dr. Vern Vogel's, CTO of Amazon. Everything fails all the time, and this is just so true. What are the key concepts of this pillar? RTO, recovery time objective. How long can you be down? RPO, recovery point objective. How much data can you lose? Failure modes, what can break and how, and recovery patterns. So automatic healing versus manual intervention. And again, it's not like it's one size fits them all. When we do these reviews, certain pillars, certain questions are more important for one customer or one workload than the other. Sometimes, you can work in an industry or your product can work in a way where you can be, let's say, you're only operating Monday through Friday. So if something goes wrong over the weekend, it's fine. So like there could be situations where your RTO could be longer, but obviously there are other cases where it needs to be as small as possible. So everything depends on what you can do about these. So instance failure, we have auto scaling. So a new instance is spun up. I actually once did it with one customer where they used to have only one instance without auto scaling group. We made it so that single instance, it was still a single instance, but it was within an auto scaling group, and I made a presentation for the whole team, CTO included, where I went through the scenario when I said, what if one of the employees just by mistake shut down the instance? And usually when I do this, I just talk about the implications, but on that presentation, I just shut it down. And everybody was like, what's going on? But like within seconds, a new instance was spun up. The service was, the service continued. So yeah, that let the point sink in, and everybody wants, or that I think what you want for your workloads. AZ failure, so availability zone, so a data center. Cluster in AWS parlance, you go multi-AZ, there's automatic failover if there's a failure in any of these AZs. Data loss, you have backups, so you can restore them. And here an example of fragile single AZ architecture. So you spin up an instance, and it's only in one single AZ. Same with the database, you have the multi-AZ setting off. And again, these are real examples. This is real Terraform code. So you will see how easy it is from changing this from false to true, and it will save you a lot of headache going on in the future. These are the principles. And by the way, this whole presentation will be available on GitHub after this webinar. So again, I will skip through these and being wary of the time. High-risk issues, so again, no single AZ deployments. And here, our fix, self-healing, highly available design. So you put your instances in an auto-scaling group. And again, and you use every AZ that is available in your region. The minimum is 3. Some of them have as many as 6. One goes down, your other instances are operating as normal. And here with the database, again, you just change. So easy. You just change false to true, and when a disaster happens, automatic failover. Usually with regular RDS is like within 1 minute, and backup retention period. This is great for point-in-time recovery, and many people forget that actually this one for 99% of the cases, if you have it up to 1 month, is free of charge, because that's just how it works. If you have a copy of your database, a snapshot of your database, and the amount of data doesn't exceed the amount of data in your production database, in your live database, then it's within the price you already pay. So again, a no-brainer here. So measurable outcomes, again, availability, you go from single point of failure to highly available, mean time to recovery, hours, minutes. Same with unplanned downtime and data loss and recovery testing, because now we can finally schedule them and be confident in your disaster recovery scenario. Business value, again, you meet your SLA commitments because you may have these with your customers. Your revenue loss is reduced if a downtime happens, and customer trust and satisfaction, depending on what you do, but this is, you can't really measure it. It's priceless. And another thing that's priceless is a peace of mind. You just know it's gonna work because you've tested for it. Okay, pillar 4, performance efficiency. So we're gonna go through this really quickly because Pavel will touch upon it during his final thoughts section. Use computing resources efficiently to meet requirements. So traditional approach, more is better mentality. You over provision just in case. Use outdated instance families because why change it if it worked for the last couple of years. You often pay for unused capacity and you have higher energy consumption. Again, this ties into cost savings and sustainability so much. With well-architected, you right size from the start, you scale based on demand, use the latest generation instances, which is super easy to do, and you only pay for what you use. Okay, again, we will have better timing. Just last week, new AMD chips, EPYC 5th generation launched, and with that we have new MA8 family of instances on AWS, and they're just so much better than the old ones. So if you're running M7A right now, just change that one digit in your Terraform code, and you'll be golden. Over provisioning resources. Again, anti-pattern, we use some random value here. Again, older generation, this is just an assumption that we're using. This instance has 8 vCPUs, 32 gigs of RAM, but the actual utilization, and also this happens so often. It's that's why you have CloudWatch, you have all of those metrics, all of that data, you can make informed decision. If you're only using 20% of the CPU, why pay for the overage? No scaling, always peak capacity, expensive, inefficient, wasteful, but it's always been this way, so hard to change. Again, core design principles. This one is really cool. Consider mechanical sympathy, so you match workloads to your instance types. There are so many of these, and obviously when you start off, maybe just go for the general. M8A8 is usually your best option for an x86 workload, but with time you can really mix and match these and use tailored hardware for the workloads you're running. HRIs, again, not leveraging latest processor technologies. This is just so easy to achieve. Key question: are you leveraging EPYC 5th? If not, leaving performance and cost savings on the table. You'll see that in a moment. Okay, and just optimized version of the code. We just changed the type and the size. And now it's obviously we know that we had to right size it by using stuff that I didn't show on the screen. So data from CloudWatch metrics, for instance. But another thing you can add is you can just scale for demand. So for instance, maybe you can scale it down at 10 p.m. every day because you don't get much traffic there, or maybe you can just turn off your dev instances over the weekends because nobody works then. So there are just so many ways. This is the power of the cloud. You just you can spin these up in a matter of seconds. So you can also spin them down in a matter of seconds. So don't forget about that. And here some measurable outcomes, obviously meaningful cost reduction, better utilization, and this is the just best bang for your buck. And obviously we want this to be, we don't want to pay for stuff we don't need, and that's one of the reasons why we chose cloud. Again, you lower the costs, better application performance, better user experience, and you also have capacity for growth without the proportional cost increase, something that I also have seen a lot of customers struggle with. So this is very, very important. Okay, let's move on, and we shall try to wrap it up really quickly. Cost optimization. Again, sometimes, often this is the one we start with because somebody has been on AWS for some time now. The bill is stable, but is there anything we could do about it? And this is again about running systems with business value at the lowest price point, because obviously what you could just tear down all of your infrastructure and pay $0 for it. Not what we want, because or not what our customers want, because they want their businesses to thrive. So we analyze spending, identify waste, eliminate it, optimize usage, use reserve capacity, and get maximum value. So every dollar you save here, you can use on innovation, new features, improving margins, which is really important. And also, again, as you will see in a second, helps with sustainability. Often what we see, somebody spun up something, maybe through Terraform, maybe through the console, and using a large instance, using an old version of that instance, no savings plans, even though they know how much capacity they will need, because they've been running their business for quite some time. And we'll see how easy it is to change that. Here, the core principles: financial management, adapting a consumption model, and stop spending money on undifferentiated heavy lifting. So if you're spending money and it doesn't bring you, value, and you have to waste operational time on it, just use managed services. HRIs for the pillar. Quick wins. This one is super easy, especially with bigger organizations. Just look at the amount of EPS volume. So the network disks your servers use, usually the old unused ones are just left over, and the cost piles up. So here our example, what we did here, we right-sized the value, where we obviously use the latest chipset available. We also use tagging here. So again, use tagging on every resource that supports it. It will help you with assigning the cost in your cost centers. You will be able to tell whether it's your development environment, your production environment, what team is responsible for it. Ownership is really, really important. And you can also schedule. You can write a simple Lambda function to schedule your dev instances to be shut down out of hours. And again, creating a savings plan, super, super easy. If you know your workload demands, you will save a lot of money through that. So again, right sizing, scheduled shutdown, obviously use the 5th generation EPYC migration. I put the implementation effort low to medium, but obviously if you're already on x86, this will be super low. If you're using ARM, then that could take longer, but none of these are really hard to implement, and you will definitely see the notice on your, you will see the difference on your cloud bill. This is the key insight. Okay, last pillar, last with a real photo here, not generated one. Minimize environmental impact of cloud workloads. We're gonna go super quick. So efficient resources, modern processors, auto-scaling, reduce carbon footprint equals sustainability and lower costs as well. So which is great. Some key insights here. And again, you can see the change will be super, super easy. We just have an old instance, not right size. So again, ties so much in with the other pillars. And so if you got them right, probably this one is 3/4 there. Okay, we put some auto scaling in. We change the instance type. Again, we're golden. Here are some measurable outcomes, but obviously lower energy costs align with cost optimization, corporate sustainability reporting metrics, future-proof architectures. Okay, Pavel, sorry, that was quick. The remainder of the slides, sorry, that was not as quick as I hoped it to. Sorry, guys. I thought I lost you there. Couldn't see you. Couldn't see on the screen. So I was focused on that one. Next one we have to do in person with the audience. It's just easier to measure the room and know whether I'm talking to someone.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you very well.
I think Pavel has a little bit of connection issues.
can't continue talking, but I hope I think I should just stop.
Can you hear me, guys? Or
now again, yeah. I don't think it's working, Pavel.
In the meantime, if there are any questions, this is the time we could use. We can answer them while we wait for Pavel. We're pretty close to the 1 hour mark. This one may overrun a bit. Sorry again for that. I will need to apply some performance efficiency on the way I do this. Let's give Pavel a minute or two. We'll see. If not, we'll wrap it up as it is. But again, there is.
Or maybe Rafael, maybe. Yeah, maybe you can share with the audience a little bit about your experience with Well-Architected. What are the typical things that you see customers often struggle with?
So I think the key takeaway, and it was very early in the session, is what you told about asking the right question, because it's not about it's not if I were to build an architecture from scratch, I'm sure I will get a lot of stuff wrong, even though I've been doing this for years. And it's not like any other, bigger companies do it better. It's more about this continuous evolution and just asking the right question, like, what will I do if the deployment will fail? What if I do if the traffic spikes 10 times than usual? And this is because maybe it's something that we missed through this webinar, but the gist of the whole Well-Architected Framework review is about talking with the customer, so spending time with different business stakeholders, with engineers, with financial people, with the C-suite, and again aligning the framework to their needs, their current needs. And again, when we do this, we focus on a single workload. So if you already have an elaborate application, maybe it's just one part of that application that you want to run the Well-Architected Framework for, and that will help you with that one step that is really important for you.
Yeah. I also think that from my end, I can also add something. So I've seen customers using Well-Architected, or in general, the reporting as kind of the excuse. I've seen this was for a surprise to me. When I worked with customers, they said, I would say, hey, Florian, tell this as the AWS guy or this external person to give us a little bit weight for internal discussions. I work with automotive customers where there are a lot of hierarchy and a lot of decision-making is quite complex. So we used this as the excuse, saying, hey, we need to do, gals, we need to do this because AWS, in quotes, tells us to do so. This is best practices, so we should try to follow that, maybe by using an AWS service or maybe by using something that is open source, or just making sure that we follow that or come to decision that this does not apply to our situation. But that ends up with having a documented decision that is written somewhere that you can always come back to.
Yeah, exactly. I think a common misconception is that it is an audit. It is not. It again is a conversation on how you want to evolve and optimize your workloads. And again, like you said, it's a free tool. You can do it yourself. It takes a bit of time. It's not something you will get done with in a day. But just by going through those questions, they will make you think about certain aspects of your business, of your application, of your customer base as well, that you haven't thought about before. And included in the tool are all of the best practices, different scenarios. So even if you're not an expert, you can do it. Obviously, you can reach out to an expert like Trek2Summit. You can reach out to AWS as well. So there are, companies, there are people that can help you with, but it is a great starting point. Again, maybe you're at the very beginning of your cloud journey. Maybe you're an advanced user. Maybe your product has been out there and seen success. This is also something that often kicks off this whole discussion with our customers, that they've had great business success, but there came a point where they have issues with launching new features, keeping their workload operational during peak hours. And when you start your business and you want to go from like one customer to 1,000, then to 10,000, you often don't think beyond, because this is like the end of your horizon. But over time you're successful, and this is what we wish to all of our customers. And 10,000 customers become 10 million, and what you built at the very beginning won't make the cut. So yeah, that's when this framework is very, very helpful.
Cool.
Okay, I think we're a bit over time. Not sure if Paweł's came back. However, now I remember I forgot to ask you about the reliability pillar, which I know you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
And you have some insights maybe you want to share. If we can do 2 more minutes, and then we'll wrap it up, unless Paweł shows up.
Yeah, sure. I see that we 1 minute. So in general, when it comes to reliability, the current discussion that we also see in the field is everything around, let's call it digital sovereignty, that is closely connected to reliability and the concept behind of resilience. So as our audience people might know or might not know, we are launching a European sovereign cloud by the end of the year in Brandenburg to exactly cater to those needs of customers in Europe. It's not necessarily to say, hey, everybody should go to the European sovereign cloud, but it fulfills this need for making sure that you design something that is digital sovereign by leveraging that cloud. It is also connected back to the well-architected framework. So for all of you, those in the room, we will also launch a well-architected lens. So that is that specific view on the pillars that Rafał talked about. That is called digital sovereignty lens, which picks upon those elements that you can leverage to then either evaluate a workload when you have already built something, say, okay, is this maybe already sovereign in a way that it fulfills your compliance and your security needs in a standard AWS region? In our case, we internally talk about the commercial regions or the commercial partition. And in that case, you can easily leverage that lens to then evaluate, but also architect your solution to say, hey, maybe you have a scenario where it is about, in general, public sector, governmental entities that say, hey, you're part of that organization or you're working with them to identify the best practices again, the design principles, and then lead and bring in questions that you can use for discussing. And as a bonus point, I just realized that we're also going to have a reliability session tomorrow on Wednesdays. In general, from the well-architected team, we always call this well-architected on Wednesdays, not World of Warcraft, but WoW. And that's one also something I will put into the chat for those of you who now stuck with us for those additional 3 minutes. At least you have the registration link. I will be there together with my colleague from AWS, Ricardo, and we will talk deeply about resilience and reliability in the combination for the framework, for the well-architected framework.
Amazing.
Sorry for hijacking.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Florian. Share the link. Paweł unfortunately won't be able to join us back. However, I hope this won't be the last one of these we do. Be sure to let us know what you think about this. If you were here with us today live, thank you very much. If you're seeing this through an archive on YouTube or elsewhere, leave your comment down below. We will appreciate that. We will appreciate feedback so we can just do it better the next time over. Well-architected reference right there. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. If you have any needs regarding your business, if you want us, Trek2Summit to help you out with, reach out to me, reach out to any of our colleagues, reach out to Florian as well, obviously expert on the matter. As Trek2Summit, we're both based in Poland and the UK, so wherever is better for you. And with that, again, I want to thank you very much. Thank you very much to Florian. Thank you very much to Pavel. Sorry we weren't able to accommodate him here, but next time, if you want to see webinars on any other topics, if you want us to jump in on maybe one of the pillars, or want to do a very specific scenario, let us know, and we shall do that in the future. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Awesome, folks.
Bye.
Bye.